Episode 3 of the Dr. Tottenham podcast. I'm Ed Zitronch. We are at Dr. Tottenham. Vash is at VCOM1. Timmy's with us. He's at TIMMAH621. Dan will be with us soon. You can find him at Yidvids. We're on Instagram. We're Dr. Tottenham. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube. You can find the pod pretty much everywhere. You can find a pod. We have a signing. We have a signing, lads. And Vash. Is that forest green, hunter green, racing green? That kid.
I don't know what it is, mate, but yeah, I do like it. And yeah, Spurs swindled more money out of me because I ended up going for the better quality top because the standard replica in this colour was just awful, I thought. But there you go.
So do you feel pro?
Almost, mate, almost. Not as pro as you.
Timmy, we have a signing. By the way, I enjoyed your pod last week, so I couldn't be on it. Talked about a lot of cool stuff, especially our new signing, Emily Hoiberg. Tim?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Emily.
Well, we got him, so we're happy, right? We're all pleased.
Second summer in a row, you got your main transfer in before preseason even starts. So I'm definitely happy about that.
So, look, I know Vash is the YouTube expert. Obviously, you know talent. I haven't watched really any film of him, but what I did do is I read a really good article. I can't remember who wrote it, from The Athletic. And it really was about him as a person. Man, I was I don't know whether you guys read that, but I was thoroughly impressed with the character of this guy. Talked about sort of his upbringing through Danish clubs, setbacks that he had, relationships with his dad. A really interesting guy. So, Timmy, I'll start with you. You happy we signed him?
Yeah, definitely happy we signed him. I think, we talked about it last week, not just what he gives us on the pitch, but off the pitch. That's really what we need is this team's gone stale. We need it changed. And hopefully he's the guy who can come in and shake up that locker room a little bit.
Yeah. Vash, you agree?
Yeah. Something I mentioned last week, Sam, was the fact that I think he will demand more from the players around him, and maybe he'll be the catalyst to just be that kick up the backside that everybody needs on that pitch. It will kind of beg the question about who will be playing alongside him, because him being a new signing and somebody that Mourinho was after implies that he's almost a guaranteed starter in that role. So it'll be interesting to see what goes on around him, who plays with him. But certainly the more I read about him and the more I see of him, I'm very happy that we made this signing.
Yeah, likewise, same here. I kind of bitched a few pods ago about the time it was taking. It seemed like it was, everybody knew that we were going to sign him, so just get the business done. But Tim, as you point out in the rundown, this is the second summer transfer window in a row. We got our main transfer, really before preseason. So we bitch a lot about, our activity and the way we go about doing our business. But what does this say? What does this say in your eyes?
It says that we're committed to trying to get better early, trying to actually make the preseason mean something. I mean, it's a waste if you bring in someone who's going to completely change the dynamic of your starting 11 and they don't even have a chance to grow with them or learn the tactics. You're essentially hitting restart in the middle of the season. I think it's pointless if you're bringing in someone who's going to be that much of an influence on the team. The Athletic put out something where they said that the move was actually months of offers and counter offers back and forth. They said that Everton was in for him, Monaco, Ajax, but he wanted to come to Spurs. He wanted to work for Mourinho. You guys hate him, but players do want to come play for him. Players really do want to come play for him. And they said he was, real quick, they said he was offered higher wages at other clubs also.
Yeah. So let's take a step back for a second. When you think about recruitment, you reckon that he's been recruited all along with Levy and Mourinho, or do you think that he might have been a target even prior?
I don't know. I don't think it was a situation of recruiting him until it became clear that he was not going to extend his contract at Southampton. I think that's when it became a possibility, when he made it clear, I'm not re-signing. And they weren't going to allow him to go into the last year. So I think that's really what started. I don't think it was a long-term target. It was just the opportunity presented itself for a player of his quality with his leadership, and Levy went after it, and Mourinho signed off on it, wanted the player.
Yeah, it strikes me. I'm hopeful that we can look forward and say, "Wow, what a steal he was." I I saw some stats that compared him against some really good players like Conte and some other forces in the Premier League in that position, and by all stats, it looked like he had a fantastic year last year. I mean, is that safe to say?
Yeah, I think so. He had the most, I don't know what the term is, but winning back the ball. He won the ball back most times in the Premier League last season, above players like Kante and one or two others that we kind of look at as being the kind of linchpins in certain midfields for certain teams. So that was promising, and yeah, I think he likes to drive the ball forward. He gets up into the top third of the pitch. But one thing that he has done was it was said that when he first went to Southampton, he was picking up too many yellow cards and red cards because he was overzealous at times. But I think he's kind of cut that out of his game. So yeah, he's definitely a good addition to our team, and I think we've all agreed but before the end of the season that what we needed was a central defensive midfielder, and thankfully we got one, and we got one early.
Well, we're going to certainly see how good he is on the pitch. I mean, I don't think there's any debate as to his leadership qualities. He gave, his first interview. We have a question about it from at Joey Davis _13. He's Saint Laurent Joe. PEH said we need 11 leaders on the field. He asks, Bass, I'll ask you, would Lucas be considered a leader? Joey says he gives his all every game, loves the club and the fans, shows up in big games. Most recent North London derby, super sub versus City earlier this season, obviously Ajax game.
I don't know if we can consider Lucas to be a leader as such. I mean, it's not just about giving your all, it's about inspiring others around you. And I don't know whether Lucas does that or whether he does that consistently enough. He's had a few...
Why do you hate Lucas?
Sorry?
Why do you hate Lucas?
I don't hate Lucas.
He's back, too. He's back.
He's had a few outstanding performances, granted. And
with Harry Kane, mind you, with Harry Kane playing.
Yeah, exactly. I think Mourinho is using him differently. He's certainly not dropping him too often, so he's relying on his work ethic. And I think his game has changed somewhat since Mourinho came in. But, I don't think we can really consider Lucas to be a leader. The people I look at as being leaders on the pitch right now have been Kane and maybe Toby and Lloris as captain, possibly Dyer. But there's not too much more than that in our side. And if PEH said that we need 11 leaders on the field, then, well, yeah, that's another one ticked off.
So we got to sign, 7 more?
Yeah, something like that.
Yes, I'll ask you a following question. Who was the last, what you would define as, great leader for Spurs? The proverbial player that you want in your foxhole.
We've always been at, what did Mourinho call us on that preview? Don't be nice lads, you got to be horrible cunts or something along those lines. We'll talk more about that later when we get on to the Amazon documentary, but that's hard. I mean, probably Ledley King, maybe. The last one. I can't think. I've gone blank. Can you think of anyone, Sam?
No, that's just it. I was having a really hard time thinking about that. I mean, I almost think you have to go back to like a Graham Roberts kind of.
Yeah. I was going to mention that, but that's like
I can't think of anybody in the last 20 years that was just a nasty bastard that the team could, rally around. I mean, Tim, can you think of anybody?
Unfortunately, no. I think that says a lot.
It does, doesn't it? I think it does. I mean, I think it does. So, we'll see. I mean, we're desperately in need of that. I mean, I thought to a degree Dyer could be that kind of player. Like I think of like the Chelsea match, the Battle of the Bridge, stuff like that. but if you think about it, we went too overboard, right? We went too extreme. So
Yeah.
I can't really think of anybody who's really sort of led and maintained and sort of changed the spirit and personality of Spurs. And I think this guy will. I mean, I was thoroughly impressed with his leadership. He seems to be very cerebral, a big thinker. So we'll see. All right. Well, here's a question. Kenneth Hendrickson from Facebook: is Højbjerg overhyped by us Spurs supporters? Tim.
100%. He is by some people from some. No, I'm being serious. Some
Really?
things I'm seeing on Twitter already are saying that's the future captain of our club right there. Like let him step on the pitch first.
Right.
Let him have a couple of minutes. I think he is being overhyped by a lot of supporters.
Well, I mean, look, he's a captain of Southampton. He earned that armband. I mean, it's not a huge step, right, to think that he could be that player, right? That he could be that I mean, he could be captain.
He could. I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility, but to already start saying that's our future captain right there. Like, let me see him with the kit on and playing a few games first before I dub him the future captain in our, let's see what happens. I think some people are really overhyping him right now.
I think any new signing garners some level of excitement, and people do tend to go a little bit overboard, and perhaps they have. It's only natural, but as Timmy says, let's let the guy take the field and play a few games for us before we start sort of bowing down at his feet or anything like that. But yeah, he's certainly a good signing, one that we needed, but let's wait and see.
Let me tell you why I think he's a good signing, and I think this is going to really take some pressure off him. We didn't pay bags of money for him, so it's not like he's got like this lofty fee over his head that puts pressure on him to perform, and I think that may end up being really, really helpful to him. So
I mean, look, I'm guilty of it also. I overhype players all the time. I remember when we signed Paulinho, I was like, oh, look at City wasting money on Fernandinho. We got the younger future star of Brazil. And, like I posted something like to the effect of that, right, when we signed him, like, we got the young one who's going to be the real star for Brazil and controlling that midfield, and boy, was I fucking wrong.
And my brother in London is a goon, right? And I wrote, I'll never forget it, because that was the year that we got him along with 6 other players with the bail money, right? Mm-hmm. So I wrote this. My brother's winding me up, so I write this missive. I swear to God, it's like 5 paragraphs long, and I must have dedicated 2 paragraphs to like Paulinho, the future greatest Brazilian player ever, coming to Spurs.
Right.
Well, he did go. He did leave us for Barcelona by way of China.
I think a lot of people had high hopes for Paulinho. I've got to be honest. I don't think you two guys were alone. I think a lot of fans had high hopes for him, but that's the way it goes sometimes.
Where was it? Was it Cardiff? Cardiff that he had that outrageous
that back heel one.
Yeah. I was like, that's my boy.
Yeah.
Like really early in his career, and then a few games later, he just like shot the ball like 20 feet wide left. Who was that against? Is that against Watford?
I've blocked that from my mind. I can't remember that.
That was so bad. Well, and I wound my wife up about that because she's Brazilian, and I'm just like, that was so Spursy, right? This great World Cup star that comes to White Hart Lane. It reminded me of like Ozzy and Ricky after the '78 World Cup, and then I don't think I'll ever you think of things like you can't unsee. I'll never be able to unsee that shot again. That shot was probably the most horrific shot I've ever seen a Spurs player take.
He almost shot it out for a throw-in.
No, it wasn't that wide, Timmy. Come on.
It was pretty bad.
All right, so
it was about 6 feet wide.
Let's be realistic with Emily here, okay? Let's be realistic with Emily, because.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think there's like huge expectations on him. I would suggest there's far more pressure on a player like Ndombele versus Højbjerg.
So my question is, what are your realistic expectations for him in his first season?
You know what? To impart resolve on the team, to to provide stability, to provide calmness, and like I think of his role solidifying like a 2-1 victory. Like I want to see him impact there. I want to see him impact us, from a discipline standpoint, getting players in place, leadership things. So I'm not looking for him for bags of goals and crunching tackles. I'm just looking for just a complete player. Like I would be okay if his talent level wasn't that great if he just does the intangibles really, really well and consistently.
What I want and what I would expect from a player like that we sign is to start more than half of our games. Because you look back at some of our other signings, big money ones, and Ndombele, Lo Celso, they didn't start more than half of our games, and we're bringing this player in early who's supposed to transform the team. I want to see you play more than half the games in the Premier League. That's where I'm going to set my expectations. Then we'll talk about future captain later, but let's see if you can win a starting role and play more than half the games.
Do you think, Vash, that by way of him being the big signing, well, I suppose he's the big signing, certainly the first signing, do you think that just sort of implicitly makes him a starter, that central defensive role is his?
Yeah, absolutely, because, our options there are somewhat limited, aren't they? I mean, we've been playing with Winks and Sissoko there. We had Mourinho earlier in the season saying that Sissoko is not a number six, but he can play there. Harry Winks has essentially had to change his game somewhat because I thought he was a more offensive player when he first came into the side. And Eric Dyer, whilst he did play there for a while, seems to be carving out a position for himself at centre-back. So we're really kind of desperate there. I mean, I see Højbjerg, whatever. Anyway,
I see him. The hard G.
Yeah. You lulled me into that, Timmy. I see Højbjerg doing the playing nearly all the Premier League games this first season. That's my expectation of him. I really do feel he can do that for us.
All right, so this isn't on the rundown, but there was a rumor this week, and I don't know whether it's just complete bollocks or whether there's any truth to it or not. But who was it? City wants to put in a £40 million bid for Harry Winks. Tim, do you?
Well, it is on the rundown, and we have a listener question. Creefer's at seat 56. If City want Winks, surely that means we should keep him.
Oh, what do you think about that?
I mean, look, if you're going to pay $40 million for him at that price, yeah, I'd take it because he hasn't nailed on a starting spot, and that's $40 million for a squad player, which you can reinvest into maybe a starting right back. One that's actually good, not one that's going to come in here and struggle to adjust. You can go out and actually really get a target. So, look, I love Winks. My only game ever there, White Hart Lane, was his start when he scored. I have a Winks jersey. It's going to be upsetting to see, a homegrown player, and really homegrown, not just from the country, but from the area. It's going to be upsetting to see someone like that leave. But look, if you're offering $40 million for someone who can't nail down a starting role, then yeah, I would take it and reinvest it correctly.
Vass, I got two questions for you here. Do you think there's some parallels with Eric Dyer a couple of years ago?
Yeah, I don't know. I think
I was going to ask you if there's parallels to Eric Dyer, and would you, knowing what you know now, would you have sold Eric Dyer for $50 million to United 2 years ago? And does Harry Winks, is there a parallel there? Is there a bit of similarity? Is Winks worth £40 million?
Yeah, I saw that similarity, and that came into my head whilst Tim was talking. I think the problem with Spurs fans, actually not just Spurs fans, but fans of other clubs as well, is when you look to possibly sell a player that you have some attachment to or some affection for, it's always hard to let go and accept the money. And you're quite right, Sam. When Man United came in for Dyer at 50 million, Spurs fans were like, you can't sell him, blah, blah, blah. And it's always hard to let players go and destruct a squad because the fans have that affinity. But if you're looking at it from a cold, hard business sense, you'd probably do what Timmy says and take the money at that level, 40, 45 million. You're going to have to think about it, and maybe you can reinvest that money. The only thing that puts a doubt in your mind is the fact Man City who are coming in for him. So essentially going to a club that is in a better position than us right now in terms of guaranteed qualification for Champions League, fighting for titles, that kind of. So you wonder, well, what the hell are City seeing in him that we don't? And it makes you, there's some trepidation there about letting go perhaps of something that could be a lot better than you think that you've got or whatever. It gets a bit confusing. But 45 million, I think you're probably going to have to think about it.
Now, let's keep in mind this came from the Sun. So let's say that as starters.
I think this is
okay.
I think it's utter bollocks. I don't know whether it's just a wind up. I don't know whether this is sort of whether it's a newspaper ploy or whether it's Man City ploy to unsettle a player why they would choose Harry Winks to do that. I don't know. But look, I mean, let's face it. The three of us, for example, and we're representative of most Spurs fans. We've seen enough of Harry Winks. We know enough of Harry Winks. We've seen enough performances of him. He's not worth £40 million. I don't suggest. I mean, he's had two great managers, right? He's had Pochettino. He's had Jose. What would suggest that a guy like Pep all of a sudden could turn Winks around? I don't buy that. So here's my question there. But let's just say you sold him. I mean, it's kind of I worry about robbing Peter to pay Paul. Is £40 million enough to get somebody to replace him? Or Tim, I'll ask you this: what would you do with the £40 million that you got for him?
So yes, $40 million is enough to get someone to replace him. There are players out there a lot of players you can get for $40 million. But like I said, I would take that money and I would go reinvest it in a true, real quality right back, one that wasn't on our radar because we weren't looking at spending that money. I would go and I'd combine whatever fees you get for Winks and RA if you're selling both of them. I mean, hell, I'd spend $60 million on a right back if we can actually get someone decent in who's going to lock down that position. But real quick, what you're talking about with Winks, why would City want him? I mean, look, he could play better in that style of play. Pep's possession, his sideways passes that everybody bitches about. Look, he might really work in City's system, just maintaining possession. So who knows? It may be just a system fit. Why are you going to keep somebody if Jose says, look, he really can't do what I want him to do, which by any account, I don't think Jose's saying that. I think Jose has said the opposite about Winks. But I'm with you. I think it's a bullshit rumor. But if that money comes in, I would take it. I'd take it and run with it. I would go spend it on a right back. I'd go spend it on, a player we'll talk about coming on here later, Milan Skriniar. I'd spend $40 million on him. I would spend it on somebody who's going to actually come in and start and make a difference to the squad than somebody who's just going to be a depth player, because that's kind of what we've seen from Winks.
Is $40 million enough for a player like Yusuf Atal coming off of an ACL injury?
Yeah, I have no clue what's going to happen with him if he's even fit enough to play, because the French league didn't restart. We didn't get the reports from them. They're not in any Europa League or Champions League, so nobody knows what's going on with his injury. But possibly, I mean, it might be enough to get a player like that in. I still think you might need to add more than $40 million. And that's the thing with a quality right back. I mean, it's just really hard to find one. There's not that many.
Yeah,
it's not a situation where you're a midfielder. You can play central mid, defensive mid, attacking mid. You can play on one of the wings. You can be a secondary striker. If you're a center back, you can play center, defensive mid. You can play right back, left back. Usually, if you're a right back, you're a right back. If you're a left back, you're a left back. And there are very few options there. So when you find a good one, it's going to be expensive to get them.
Yeah, and I remember last year we were talking about this during the window, that there's just simply not a lot of there's not a lot of right back or left back talent. We got a question from Matt Tedesco. Vass, I'll ask. This came from Facebook. Vass, I'll ask you. A lot of smoke around something involving Skriniar and Ndombele. Thoughts there?
Vass, real quick, have you YouTube scouted Skriniar?
I have, Tim. Yeah, I did it earlier.
All right, well, let's get your report.
Wow.
Okay, so yeah, I like him. Definitely one that we should probably go for. Although it seems as though I didn't see him win a lot of headers. Maybe the clips were just really about him on the ground. He likes to get in and nick the ball and tackle players, and he's quite clean in the tackle. He's calculated. I'd be worried in the Premier League, though, that he didn't give a lot of fouls away around the 18-yard box or something like that. So I think if he comes in, I don't think he'll be a day one starter. He might need a little bit of time to adjust to the Premier League. But certainly a very competent and skillful centre-back. And watching him play, I've got to be honest, I did think of Toby as in the way that he plays. I'm not saying he's as good as Toby, so it could be a successor to Toby if we did make a move for this fella. So yes, I'd be happy to bring him in. He'd be a good addition in our defence. But as to whether there's going to be any swap or anything with Ndombele, I don't know what to make about that. I'm a bit confused at the moment. I don't know whether the club are ready to bail on Ndombele. They may very well be. I would prefer that they hang on to him for another season and see what we got now that we're shoring up the midfield and possibly the defence behind him. Don't know how you guys feel about that.
Well, I just want to apologize real quick for probably the worst segue that I've ever made at, I was going to say Hotspur America, but on the Dr. Tottenham podcast, certainly, because we were talking about right backs and left backs, and I segued into center backs. I apologize. And yeah, but I want to get back. I want to get back to wing backs. Well, go ahead. Go.
Hold on. We'll get back to him because the next person we're going to talk about is a wing back. But let me just say one thing on Skriniar is Jose likes him. Jose does. He tried to get him at United and was not able to convince Inter to sell. And there's reports that earlier this year when they had a big match against Roma, he sent our scouts there to watch him in person. Skriniar also likes Jose. He's quoted saying, when some coach like Jose says that he is looking for a player like me or somebody else, it's always nice. Jose is one of the most famous, best, greatest coaches in the world. So there's mutual admiration there. Skriniar struggled this last year. He really did. He did not adapt to Conte's new system, playing a high line. He struggles with that a lot. But it's undoubted that in the 2 years prior than that, he was one of the best defenders in Serie A. He really was. He thrives in a low block system like Mourinho plays. He is fit for our system, and I think that's one reason why his name's being brought up is I don't think Conte rates him, and I think he struggles a lot in that style of play. But I think he would be a very good player for us if we were able to get him. The problem is he's not going to be cheap. He has a contract that runs until 2023. So it's going to cost huge money to get him or some type of situation that's involving an Ndombele swap. And I'm with Vats. I don't think the club's ready to do that. I think it's more some agenda from people inside Ndombele's camp that are either trying to push a move for him or it's Inter trying to force a move for him, and they're talking up to some reporters and trying to get them to make links. Because there's clear conflicts between what you have the Tottenham beat writers in Alistair and Dan Kilpatrick saying, and then other reporters like Fabrizio Romano, who is very well respected. He's reporting the complete opposite. So they may be getting their information correct. Inter Milan may want to go for him, and Ndombele's representatives may want him to move out. I think there's correct information coming from both sides. I just think there's a huge disconnect, and I hope that we're not ready to move on.
You know the reason why I think that we're not going to sell Ndombele, certainly not at least this season, and I think there's a little bit of ego involved. I mean, I think that if we were to sell him, we're certainly not going to get what we paid for him, and I think it would be an indictment of our recruiting and transfer efforts. And I just can't see Levy accepting that kind of defeat. Anyway, let's move on to wingbacks, because this is very timely, because you nailed it last week. You talked about Timothy Cassagna, and you just don't think he's a very good defender, and I think there was a little bit of proof of that in the Champions League this week. So it's only fair that you should talk about it.
So with Cassagna, the first thing is he doesn't fit our style. You're not signing a right back with this player. This is someone who hasn't played as a right back since 2016, 2017. Atalanta don't use right backs. He's played 2 games as a left back this season. He's played 15 games as a left midfielder, 15 games as a right midfielder. This is somebody who is going to always look to go forward offensively, make overlapping runs. And it's not bad if that's what you're signing him for, but that's not exactly what we're doing. We don't really play three center backs anymore. So we need him to actually defend, and he's not a good defender. I'm concerned about his defensive ability being caught out of position too high up the pitch, like REA does. He's not going to have three center backs to cover for him. He gets caught out of position a lot for Atalanta, but he has three center backs to cover for him. In 1v1 defending situations, he dives in, he loses it. Look, it's just not an upgrade over REA, and that's what you're wanting. Even going forward offensively, he's not an upgrade over REA. He's not as athletic as him. In making assists, he's only had 14 his entire career, going back to playing for Genk in the Belgian league. Going back to 2014-15, 14 assists total. Over the last 3 seasons with Atalanta, he's had 7 assists. So you're talking about a player coming in that's just going to, contribute offensively. Well, where's the contribution there? Overall, I just think it's a horrible signing. I think it's a horrible fit for our style of play. I don't think he's a good defender, and I don't think he's an upgrade over what we currently have.
Yeah, I have to agree with Tim. Checked him out on YouTube. No.
Hey, I think it's so hilarious. Like, you and YouTube was such a piss take, and now, of anybody on the pod, nobody watches YouTube. It's hilarious.
It's only little snippets at a time, Sam, when I've got a player to think about. Tim tells me to jump on YouTube and check someone out, so I'll do that.
Here's the thing, though. I said he was a shit defender before this PSG loss. So that didn't change I'm not, coming out with a hot take new opinion just because that happened. And in that situation, look, he's not 100% at fault for that goal. We've seen Davies do that a lot, and our supporters slayed him. It was, but my concern is go back and watch that, look at the build-up play to it, and it's his lack of defensive discipline, running all over the place. He runs in to go towards the ball when 2 of his teammates are already closer to him to make that challenge. And so he leaves the wing exposed. They didn't send the ball out to his wing, but it's just that lack of discipline that I don't think he's going to fit at all for Jose. I really don't. He is not a Jose player. I think he's just going to struggle massively for us. Unfortunately, out of the 3 right backs we're being rumored with, he's probably the most likely because of his contract situation. He's entering the last 12 months. His agents all but confirmed they're looking for other options moving forward. And so I'm very concerned that this is going to be the player we sign to be our right back, and he hasn't played in a right back role since 2016-17.
That would be so disappointing if he is the guy. So disappointing.
Yeah.
Not what we need.
So the Athletic Vash identified 3 right back targets, and the first one I hope he signed just because I want to say his name like forever. Max Aarons, Castagni, and Ziki Selig. If you had to choose one of the 3, who would you choose and why?
Yeah, it would have to be Selig. Castagna for all the reasons that Tim just cited. Max Aarons, I like the kid. He looks like a good player.
Why couldn't he be developed?
Yeah, you'd have to buy him as a second right back, essentially. And you're probably right. We do need 2 right backs. I'm just a little bit... I'm not enamoured with his size or his defensive ability, to be perfectly honest. Of the 3, I'd probably go for Selig from the little that I've seen of him. He does look like a better fullback, an all-round fullback.
Tim, could you ever envision Max Aarons being a marquee wingback in the Premier League?
Could I ever envision it? 100%. He's only 20 years old. Yep. He's only 20. He is extremely young, like we talked about. That's a premium position where there's just not that many players that are extremely talented at it that are going to command big fees, and he meets the homegrown qualification for it. And so I could definitely see him in the future going for a very big fee. Of those 3, it depends on what we're buying the player for. If we need someone to come in because we're selling REA and we need a starter, it's not Aarons, it's not Castagna, it's probably Zeki Selig that I think would struggle the least. in that. But if we're keeping Aurier or we're saying we're going to have Tanganga play right back, then I'm going for Max Aarons because it's a 20-year-old who already has a full season playing in the Premier League that you can develop. And so that would be my number one option. Look, his size, it's small, yeah, but you could put on some muscle for a 20-year-old. Like he can bulk up. You don't need really tall right backs. Anybody that we sign is going to be taller than Kyle Walker-Peters. Let's just be real on that.
Well, and look, I think that, and I know that his second season at Spurs, he got vilified. But generally speaking, I thought Kieran Trippier had a pretty good career at Spurs, and he's the smallest, wing back I've ever seen somewhat thrive in the Premier League. Who would be somebody, Tim, that you could compare him to size-wise, who's doing well in the Premier League at that position right now?
I don't know. I'm at a loss for that.
Yeah. Listen, I wouldn't be too disappointed if we signed Max Aarons. I certainly wouldn't be as disappointed as signing Castagna in that role. So, and Tim has a point. If we do keep Aurier, or if we're going to mould Tanganga into some form of right back, then yeah, maybe bring Aarons in as well. Although having Tanganga and Aarons, that's like there's not a lot of experience there in that position. I don't know whether Mourinho would go for it.
Fair shot. All right, so we talked about Winks. We got a new schedule. Schedule's out, right? So we've got we've got some preseason matches, and then we got a whole lot of fixture congestion. So Vass, I'll turn it over to you, and you can tell us about what we can expect here in the next couple of months, fixtures wise.
Fixtures wise, it's a bit of a mess. The only thing I didn't get a chance to check was at what point we go into the Carabao Cup. Are you aware at all, Tim?
Is it?
I thought it was the third round, but I'm not sure if it was the second round. And the only reason I mentioned that
it's got to be third or fourth. I don't think
it's
as early as the second.
Right. Okay. So the season starts on September 12th.
That's going to be a great weekend. That is going to be a great weekend because you have.
Is that when you've got the golf?
No, you got Premier League and NFL starting that same weekend.
The NFL is going to be a thing, right? That's going to happen. It
is.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just looking for the fixtures because I lost them for a moment. So here we go. So season starts on September 12th. Actually, the Community Shield is on August 29. Then straight away, September 5th, there's an international game. I don't even know why we're having internationals right now, to be perfectly honest with you.
Joking. Seriously?
Yeah. Yeah, I know. It's just whatever. So September 12th, we start Premier League. And then the games start coming thick and fast. And because Arsenal won the FA Cup, I had to get that out.
Well done.
We now have to play 3 bloody qualifying games in the Europa League. And the dates of these are September 17, September 24, and October 1, before the Europa League starts proper on October 20. So we've got to squeeze those 3 qualifying games in now. And there's going to be 4 Premier League games, 3 qualifying games, and possibly 1 Carabao Cup game in the first few weeks of the season between September 12 and October 3. So it's just going to be a bit of madness at the beginning of the season. I don't know how we're going to.
8 games in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Wow. Do we know who we play first in the Europa
Not
League?
yet.
Not yet, no.
We don't know any of the teams right now. We
Is
just
Astor
know
fucking
the dates.
in there?
More than likely.
So chances are we got pig farmers in Romania or Lithuania or somewhere.
Quite possibly.
I just don't know how I feel about that. To be fair, I mean, I talked about this, and I thought that even if those bastards going to win the FA Cup, which they did, I didn't think that we were going to have to like play in like 3 games to just.
Yeah, I thought it was only going to be 1, to be honest
what
with
I
you,
thought
but
too.
turns out it was 3.
'Cause I remember when we were talking about this with O'Keefe and
on Twitter, yeah, that's right.
yeah. So it is going to be 3 as opposed to 1.
Yeah, and the thing is, they're all like single leg games. They're not 2-legged affairs like they would have been otherwise.
Okay, well at least that's good, right?
Well, it is, but you could also become unstuck. You lose a game and then you're going home. But hopefully it won't come to that. We should be okay to get through these 3 games, but it's just adding to the fixture congestion. Would have been much better if Chelsea had bothered to turn up in the final and we could have gone straight into the group stage.
Just out loud. We had a question about this from Not So Skinny Pete. He's at Not So Skinny Pete. He says, he asked, with the insane schedule we have for the first month of the season, do you think that we'll see the majority of our signings in before the season starts? That's probably worth, Tim, I'll address this to you. And then also, can you tell us, what's the deadline for signings this year?
Deadline for signings is like October 5th or something like that. It's sometime in October.
It is.
So they've extended it because of COVID and because of everything that's just all messed up with off seasons to go into the season a bit further. So you have time with it. I don't know. I don't see us signing many players. So a majority could be 2 players signed before the season starts. That could be a majority of our signings if we're only signing 3. I don't necessarily think the scheduling is going to have an impact on us getting in signings more. I think it's just going to be if a deal presents itself. It's not tied to the schedule. It's going to be if something changes with a player and he wants out, or a new manager comes in and doesn't see a player in his plans anymore and wants him out. I think that's really what it's going to be. Now, I do think the majority of our sales and loans with this new schedule are going to be after the season starts, especially with loan deals, because we're going to need some of these players we're loaning out for the Europa League qualifying, the 3rd, 4th round of Carabao. There's no way you're just going to manage all those with first-team players. So I think we are going to hang on to, Oliver Skip a little longer because of this congestion. And also that puts him in the window to get a better loan move. So I think that is going to be affected by the schedule for sure.
Yeah. Is that date uniform across the major leagues in continental Europe? Everybody have that same October deadline?
I believe so.
Interesting, right? I mean, a year ago we just moved that all the signings were before the season starts. I mean, I know that. If my memory serves me correctly, that was just a Premier League thing. Other leagues, but it's interesting now that, and I certainly get it.
The Premier League, the teams hated that. They were getting rid of that regardless of COVID.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think you're right. Let's see here. What do we got? Roles for Sessegnon and Jetson. Matt Tedesco again. He says, thinking about depth charts and imminent needs, what do you think the roles will be for Sessegnon and Jetson this year? Vass, I'll allow you to address Sessegnon, and Timmy, you can talk about George Jetson.
Sessegnon. I'm getting a little bit nervous about this kid. I want him to play. I want to see him play. I want to see how he copes. And he didn't really get a look in last season for various reasons. Injuries was one, and then I don't think Mourinho trusted him. So the question is, what will Sessegnon do to be trusted by Mourinho going forward? So he has to show something in training, in pre-season. We've got, I think, 3 pre-season games lined up at White Hart Lane Stadium against championship teams. So he'll have to really just kind of turn up and do something. I really hope this kid works out, because I had a lot of hope for him. But right now, I don't know what his future holds at Spurs.
Tim, I know you're going to talk about Jetson, but could you see Sessegnon playing a role? Do you think he could be the starter for those 3 qualifiers in Europa League?
He certainly could, especially if it requires really long distance travel. Because, I mean, look, 8 games in 21 days. I mean, that's going to be tough. You can't expect Ben Davies to do all those. But actually, I think I would rather see Dennis Kirkin play in some of those games, especially because I don't know if Mourinho sees Sessegnon as a left back. He said it before that, at that time when he was making those comments, he didn't see Sessegnon as a left back. He saw him more as a left midfielder. So Dennis Kirkin is a player, a youngster through our academy that Mourinho sees as a left back. I'd rather see him play as a left back. And look, we're going to have to rotate with all of our midfield options. I'd rather put Sessegnon in there if that's not where he's seen. Look, this is still a 20-year-old with loads of talent. Sessegnon is only 20. He doesn't have to be a left back. We don't have to try and force him into a left back if Mourinho sees him elsewhere.
Yeah, I'd like to see him on left midfield, to be honest. And while we're here, do we know whether it is Kirkin or Sirkin?
I'm going with Kirkin.
Like you're going with Emily.
Yeah, I'm going with Pierre-Emile and Kirkin. We're bringing back Lo Celso.
I had a good laugh when you.
We're going to send some players to Norwich.
Yes, go.
I thought you nailed, Timmy, the home. I didn't know anything about the homegrown talent situation, and I thought that was really informative.
And real quick with that, there's still a huge misconception that a lot of people are posting, oh, we need to get this player for our homegrown quota. There's no homegrown quota. It doesn't say you have to have 8 homegrown players. It says if you want to carry a squad of 25, 17 is the maximum foreign players you can have. And if we're at that, then you have to have 8 if you're going to carry 25 and 17 of them are foreign. But you don't have to carry 8 homegrown players. And we didn't carry 8 last year. I mean, what was it, 2 seasons ago? I think Wolves only had 4 homegrown players. They carried a 21-man squad. So and this gets me on the Gedson with homegrown. I think that's going to be a huge issue because he's no longer under 21. He doesn't count for the exemption on, what's referred to as the U21 list or the B list for UEFA purposes. He is going to count as a foreign player for us. And what his role is going to be, well, it could be a few games in this first really tough run of fixtures, and then there could be no role. It could be that we decide not to list him because he's taken up a foreign player spot and we found the ability to go get an actual real quality foreign player that's going to start, and Gedson may not have a role. We're going to run into a situation if we keep the squad, if we don't make a bunch of sales with the maximum foreign player limit. So Gedson could be on the way out. We might be, not rostering him. They might call him back for his loan early. That could be the situation.
All right, we touched on center back earlier with the Inter Milan player. I mean, it kind of seemed sad to see Yan go. Particularly difficult to see Yan do this, and it's a red shirt, and it has Emirates on it.
They didn't even give him an iron shirt to rip open, man. They just got one out the packet, had all the creases in it. It was lame.
If there's a player that, there's probably more than one, but that's a player that was easy to love, right? I mean, I recognize his time was done here, but I wish him, as most Spurs fans do, I wish him well. But it was a bit weird. It was a bit surreal seeing that. But we did an interesting question. And where did it go? It was from Gibbo at MDJ Gibbo. He says, surely when a player as good as Vertonghen leaves you, you replace him with someone as good or better if you can. Don't you? So I'll start with Tim and Vash. You join in as well. I mean, what are we going to do with the center back position?
I really don't think you need to do anything right now. I don't think it's that huge of a concern. What's to say Tanganga is not that player who can replace him moving forward? I mean, look, his very first match, he did perfectly fine against Liverpool, the best team in the Premier League. He handled it better than Vertonghen handled some players his last year. I don't have concerns at center back. You have Toby, you have Sanchez, you have Dyer. Tanganga's your fourth. Juan Foyth is still there. He might be moving on, but I really don't think you need to go out and replace someone just because Vertonghen left. And this isn't peak Vertonghen that just left us. Keep that in mind. This isn't Vertonghen 3 seasons ago that just left the club. It's not a player that, Real Madrid came and scooped up. So we're not really replacing that Vertonghen that everybody's thinking of him as. I think we're fine. I just don't think we need to bring in another. I wouldn't mind it if the opportunity presents itself, like Milan Skriniar, if you're able to go get a player who could be quality. But I don't think we need to really address it like we need to do other positions. What do you think, Vass?
Yeah, I agree with you, Tim. And I think, as Gibbo said in the question, when he says when you lose a player as good as Vertonghen, you have to ask, what's your measure? Is your measure Vertonghen of now or Vertonghen at his peak, which may have been 2 seasons ago or 3 seasons ago? And if you want a player that was peak Vertonghen, then you're looking upwards of £50 million, I would probably say. So if we're replacing the Vertonghen who's just left and getting something better, then the likelihood is Dyer could step into that role. Sanchez has been improving under Mourinho. We could end up purchasing a Skriniar. I'd like to see Foyth stay, as I've said it on many occasions, but if not, then I think we're kind of set. We could always strengthen in any position, don't get me wrong, and that's why we've been talking about Skriniar. But I don't know which Vertonghen would be replacing, and that's a tough question to answer because.
Well, also look.
Go on, mate.
I was gonna say, look after the restart. Vertonghen didn't feature, and we had one of the best defenses in the Premier League, minus one game. Minus that Sheffield game, our defense, just looking at the numbers, was one of the best. We had, 3 clean sheets, something we hadn't been picking up a lot, and Mourinho's promoting an academy player to the first team at center back. So why go try and find somebody right now when you may have your replacements? You don't know what these academy players are going to do until you throw them into that situation, like Tanganga against Liverpool. And the player I'm talking about is Malachi Fagan-Walcott. Mourinho's already said he's going to be part of the first team this next season. He's a young center back, so let's see what he has.
I think also talking about the defence, people consider us at the moment to be a long way off the top teams in the Premier League. Certainly as far as Liverpool are concerned, because I think they've created a gap from everyone, even Manchester City in this last season. But watching some of these Champions League games over the past week, and also looking at some of the Premier League games towards the end of the season that just ended, and it strikes to me that the teams that will succeed in the Premier League next season, in terms of finishing position in the Premier League, are going to be the teams that can defend the best. And I can't, Man City had all sorts of weaknesses yesterday against Lyon, and they have done during the season too. The only team that seems to have a solid defensive plan or ability right now happens to be Liverpool. And if we're looking at the back end of the season that's just finished, we did fairly well as well. But of course, we are still work in progress. I'm not saying we're there yet. But it's going to be about deep defence next season to see who's going to be up there and thereabouts. And that might be quite a narrowing factor in who finishes well, in my opinion.
That was a good shot. It was a good discussion there. The couple things we got to do on the pod, Tim, I got to find your injury time music. So when we get back to talking about injuries, I'll try to find that. That's one thing. Another thing is I kind of feel like we should have a segment of I'm always irritated about something, right? You guys know that. And I'm irritated about a couple things now. I'm irritated about Dele Alli, and I'm irritated as shit about this fucking Amazon documentary that I'm not going to watch. I absolutely refuse to. So the first question was, and I don't know which one of you two, I guess it was Tim that put it in here, why am I upset with Dele Alli having a holiday? Why am I so miserable? I can't answer you honestly why I'm so miserable. I was just born that way. But there's just something that fucks me off about Dele Alli and his faux workout sessions in Mykonos. You don't go to fucking Mykonos to go get better. You go to Mykonos to party it up and have a good old time. And he's out there running with his parachute. Do you notice there's no sweat on his body at all in any of those photos? Man, you want to, I mean, I'm the kind of guy that, like, I feel like he needs to go to, like, LA, go to Gold's Gym and be out there on the beach. And, that should be his holiday. He gets paid a lot of money. He needs to prove himself. And I don't know. It just irritated the shit out of me that I saw him doing his thing.
Unreasonable.
Why am I unreasonable, Tim, about this?
Because look at what they just went through. Think of the mindfuck it was with the COVID and then having to go into these bubbles. And now he's going to have to jump into a season where we have 8 games within the 3-week period. Let him have a week to reset his mind. I think it's going to do more harm just going nonstop and not taking a break and jumping right back into a season, which it's not that far removed from the end of the last season. So I think you need a break. I think the mental aspect is just as important as the physical aspect.
I'm wrong, Aaron Vass. Why am I wrong?
No, you have concerns and you're right to have them. And the reason you're right to have them is because Delhi hasn't really been the Delhi that we all fell in love with for probably a season and a half, maybe longer. And I suspect there is a reason for that. There's injury, there's being played out of position, change of formations, change of managers, whole host of things that have probably contributed to Delhi more than any other player. I hope that most of it is down to injury, though, and maybe not being 100%. So I'm hoping that with the COVID layoff and now in the close season, we could maybe get him back to where we need him to be. Perhaps he does need to work harder, Sam. I'm not sure. Those Mykonos shots could be staged.
It was so staged. It was such a pretty boy stage thing, and that's what just got to me. It's like, man, go do your work. Go do your work, and let me see the product of your work on the pitch. I don't need to see these designer, these beautifully washed, what do they call those things? Filters. It was just so staged, and it just, I don't know. Maybe that's just the player of today. But this is a good question we got from Keith K at K Club. Keith, this is a really good question. He said, if Delhi is such a quality player, why do we never hear any transfer rumors for him? If the past 2 seasons made the club skeptical, or is it more so that we have him under contract till 2024 and everyone knows Levy will ask an absurd amount? Tim, I'll start with you there.
I think it's the latter. Levy's going to ask an absurd amount. That's clear. And it's a player that you have under contract for 4 more years.
Yeah, I suppose if Harry Winks is worth $40 million, what's Dele Alli worth, right?
Yeah, exactly. And look, I don't think the past two seasons have made teams skeptical. I don't. There's a very quality player in there. You saw it for the first few games when Mourinho took over as manager. He needs to find consistency. He needs, like Bass said, to have a run of games without injury, putting a stop to them. I don't get the sell Delhi, the Delhi out crowd. I do not get you. I don't get you.
You don't feel that?
I don't know.
All right, so then I'll ask the both of you this. Start with you. What do you expect from him this season? Do you think we'll have a better season than what we've had the last 2 years from him?
We better had. We need to have. We need to have the Delhi back that was blazing a trail in 2017. And even in the early part of playing at Wembley. I mean, I know that one particular Spurs friend of mine, and he feels that Delhi is either overrated or we've been accommodating him and fitting him into positions where he's of no real consequence or effect. I don't know whether he's right or not, but certainly Dele Alli needs to show something more, and I hope this coming up season is a comeback season for Delhi, because he's a very, very talented player when he puts his mind to it.
I think that's probably the reason why I'm so sort of angry at him, because I really thought, and I still do, and I agree with both of you. I think he really is a very talented player, and whenever I see talented players performing as a whole well below what I think their talent level is, I get frustrated, and then I go see pictures of bullshit workouts in Mykonos, and that just fucks me off even worse. All right, let's move on to other things that fuck me off. This Amazon trailer. Why won't I watch this?
You have to watch it, Sam.
I can't.
No, but make yourself watch it. Listen,
I keep on going back.
why can't you watch it? Why can't you watch it?
Well, okay, so because I'm angry, right? And I'm angry, and I just don't want to. I just don't want to. Like, if you want to give me a year long of like Potch, okay, then I'm fine with that. But to start with that whole cringy thing, I did sneak just a bit of, Mourinho kind of waving and like Eric Dyer, like this unbelievably, shocked look on his. I don't know. It's a part of Spurs I frankly wish to forget. Like, if I want to feel good about something, I'll watch the semifinal again, But I guess am I going to be behind the times by not watching this, Tim? Am I really going to be missing out?
Yeah.
Why?
This is a look into the club that you not too long ago said you would have given a finger for. He's like, just to be a fly on the wall in the office. I remember that exact conversation. You were like, which finger would you give up for it? This is your inside look.
I fear it's fake news.
I don't think it's going to be fake news, Sam. I think you could be right in as far as suspecting that there may be some club editing or whatever. Right. Now, you guys know I love the NFL, and I watch the NFL Hard Knocks programs and the Amazon Prime one that they do every year. And, even if you screen out some stuff that you might consider to be diluted or corporate, whatever, you do pick up a lot of human stuff that you would never have access to, never see, never be privy to. And I think that really does allow you to be that fly on the wall and to get a feel for your club, because ultimately we're fans of any club in any sport are always on the outside. We're never on the inside. And no matter how you feel about the images being sanitized, you will pick up something. You will feel something about what's going on in the club that you wouldn't otherwise feel.
I don't know, man. I wonder whether part of this is because I'm just deathly afraid that I actually might start liking our manager.
I think that's the thing, you see. I think that's what you're afraid of. And I get what you're saying about Poch, because I don't think it's right to start with Mourinho's appointment, because Poch started as manager this season, and it might have been a good place to start with maybe the disappointment following the Champions League final and what was going on in the club around that time that led to Mourinho's appointment. But rumour is that we're just going to go straight into the bit where Mourinho was appointed, which I find a little bit weird.
Yeah, me too. And I think that I would be more enthusiastic if we were going to be like have an honest account. That was a crazy tumultuous time for the club. I want to be more educated, right? We all do, right? I mean, we have sort of a responsibility to do that. So I'm worried about me not watching it because I feel like I won't be as current. But to me, that's what we should have. That would have been an unbelievable documentary. That would have given Spurs fans a really honest look at why and what it was like around the club and what players were going through. But no, they've washed it.
Maybe they've been too. Maybe those images and that time was too revealing and too sensitive. I don't know, but I hear you. I would have liked to have known why Pochettino wasn't maybe given more time or backed or worked with in order to right the ship. But yeah, I don't think we're going to get that access. So it is what it is. We're just going to have to watch it from where it starts. But do watch it, Sammy. I think you'll change your tune, mate.
I'm gonna make up so many lies about it to you, Sam, and you're not gonna know what's true. I'm gonna make up so many lies.
I'll make a promise to you. When we win the league, I'll go back and watch it.
Oh, right? Mate, that's a cop out.
Well, I just think, you know what? I feel. I don't know. It's really weird. I don't know whether I'm being a bitch about it. Number one, I get that. I feel like I'm sort of betraying somebody I love, right? Because I love Poch so much. I really do. I feel like I'm cheating on him. And maybe I'm just afraid, as Vass kind of pointed out quietly, that maybe I just don't want to like the manager, and this might force me to like him. Look, winning will definitely force me to like him. Trust me.
Here, one thing from the trailer. My favorite take that I've seen people joking about is
Oh, wow.
Dele when he comes in and like kicks something. It's like, I can't believe we lost that. And someone's like, why did Dele wear his kit to his FA appeal?
Wait.
Or to his FA hearing. So in the trailer, Dele comes in because I guess it's right at the end of the game, and he kicks a water bottle and yells, I can't believe we lost that, or something like that. And someone's like, why did he wear his kit to his FA hearing?
Yeah,
Right, you've asked me about.
Sorry, before you do, just one final thing. Yep. You know how I feel about Mourinho. I'm not his biggest fan, and I've been very critical of him in the past. I am prepared, though, to give him time to see what he can do. I can say, hand on heart, though, that I think the Mourinho off camera is a different Mourinho to the one we get on camera. I remember when I was refereeing, Mark Halsey went through the Premier League referee. He went through cancer, and he beat it and came back, and he refereed again. And Mourinho was one of the few managers who recorded, because I did a little film on it about his what he went through, this ref. And Mourinho was one of the few managers that actually recorded a really nice message to this referee about, what he'd been through with his cancer and everything else. So I don't know. Maybe you're right, Sam. Maybe the fear of liking the man is just holding you up here. But
yeah.
I'm gonna watch. I'll be watching it anyway, whatever happens.
I'm being highly unpressive about this. You're
gonna have to watch it because we're gonna have to talk about it on the pod. You know this. Just so you're watching it out of duty.
All right, why are we ending on Sabitzer? Who is Sabitzer?
He's Marcel Sabitzer. We're talking about it because TalkSport came out this morning, just a few hours before we're recording, with a rumor that we are now being linked with it. Now, keep in mind, this is also the same person who came out and said Højbjerg to Everton's a done deal. So take all this with a grain of salt. But right. He is saying we're in for Marcel Sabitzer.
And who is he?
He is a player for RB Leipzig. He plays all over the midfield, mainly on the right side, but he plays center mid, attacking mid, right wing, right mid. He's a versatile player. You're not going to see him really on the left, but he is also somebody who stepped in and has been a captain for RB Leipzig when their normal captain was out with injury. I believe he wore the armband when we played them in the Champions League.
And he made us look pretty bad, didn't he?
He made us look really bad.
But I mean,
that's probably why we want him.
Don't we have a surplus of surplus to requirements in that position?
100%. That's surplus to requirements. But if the player bringing in is better than those,
right,
then move somebody out.
Yep.
Because he certainly is. This is somebody who would, without a doubt, improve the squad. It's somebody who has leadership qualities, which that's what I keep harping on. This dressing room needs to be changed. We cannot go forward with the same squad. We need players to step up. He is somebody who's going to hold people accountable. He's somebody who's going to give his all. Wearing the captain armband, I want to go after players like that. So, look, I would love to bring him in, and if it becomes a situation of you got to move out somebody else who I love, Lamela, look, I would bring him if him coming in means Lamela going. I'm doing it any day of the week and twice on Sunday.
Yeah, I'd bring him in and I'd move out Lamela and Sissoko. I
love Sissoko. I would lose my bet for it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I would pay Sam right now for it. But look, that's the thing. Those are who he would be replacing. He's better than Lamela. He's better than Sissoko. He's better than Winks. He's better than Gedson. He's better than Lucas.
Really?
More consistent, I would say. Yeah. But he's younger. He's 25, something like that. So look, this is a player who would be an upgrade over a lot of our options. So yeah, we're a surplus, and it's not a position we need to target. But if the opportunity presents itself, then I would love us to go in for it and try and get that type of player. I think it's highly unlikely, but the reason it could be likely that they would sell him. His contract ends in 2022, so he's not entering the last 12 months. But this is the time when players are in their final 2 years, you're either re-signing them, or if he has said something to the club that he's not going to extend a contract, you sell him this window. You don't allow it to get to that point where it's the final 12 months or entering the final 12 months. You don't allow it to get to a January transfer window before he enters the last year of his contract. Your leverage is gone. So this is the time that you sell a player if they're not going to extend, is when they still have 2 years on their deal. That's how smart teams are going to do business. And so that could be the reason it's now coming up.
Does he have a top knot, Tim?
Does he what?
Does he have a top knot?
I think he's rocked the top knot a few times.
He might have rocked the top knot, Sam. So you know.
What's that? Oh, he has. Oh,
so here's what it is, Sam. If you remember our home game, or no, I think it was the away game against RB Leipzig. He's the one who put in both goals against us. We lost 3-0, knocked us out of the competition. He scored 2 goals against us. He wore the captain's armband for those games.
Look, I never like to see us lose, but I thought, they played really, really good football against us. That was a good footballing outfit, and now that you mentioned, they
played us at the right time, to be fair. But
they did. That's a fair shot. But they're still in the Champions League, right?
They are in the semi-final.
Yeah. So I mean, look, they're good. They're a good team. So I'll watch him. Let's all watch him. Cross the fingers.
Yes, mate.
Bess, do you have any thoughts on the player?
No, all I know really is that he's a box-to-box midfielder. He's very productive with assists and goals. So if Højbjerg is our defensive element, then this guy could be our attacking element too. Might bring into question how you would use Ndombele or Lo Celso and Sabitzer, but at the same time, you can never have too many good players. If we want to compete with the Man Cities and the Liverpools, who, Man City, for example, over the years, they've had people like David Silva and Bernardo Silva on the bench while others have played. And, we need to probably get to that point too. So having more good players is never a bad thing.
Which is hard to believe that, with middle of August in a month, we're right back at it. And I got to tell you, I'm really intrigued. I don't want to say that I'm excited about this season, but I'm really, really, really intrigued. Like, I'm hopeful that like a Højbjerg is a changing, is going to be like the mark of a new Spurs, and that Mourinho is going to really come good, and now we're going to start getting more competent pieces of the puzzle and more leadership, and so I'm intrigued.
Sammy's getting his juices flowing.
I'm willing to look. I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. So anyway, all right. Look, so hopefully we'll have another signing here, and we can have another pod before the season starts. Did we miss anything? I enjoyed the chat, lads.
I think we just need to credit the question on the Amazon documentary from Charles Zollars, who's at Charlie Zollar +S.
Yeah.
So thanks for the question, Charles. But I think we've covered that off now.
I have one final thing. If you're only listening on audio, you need to go watch the YouTube video. You will see Sammy's hair go from Bradley Cooper to Albert Einstein.
Transformation mid-pod.
So
because he starts the pod, soon after a shower, it's all wet, slick back, and then at one point he's just running his hands through it, and it's all over the place.
So I thought to myself the other day, I thought, what will finish in the world first? Will COVID end or Mourinho's time at Spurs end? And I figure, you know what? I'll get my hair cut when one of those two things happen.
Oh, mate, that's harsh.
No, I shouldn't say that. I've been really negative today, and I shouldn't be.
You've been fine. I
just want Lou. I want this special manager to be great. I want a Dele Alli to be great. I want leaders to be leaders. I just want us to get it all right and be successful. It's not too much to ask for, is it, Tim?
No, not at all. We just
Come
want to
on,
win. Just want to win.
We're out of here.
JFW, yeah.
Come on, you Spurs. That's right, JFW. We need to get back to that. All right, come on, you Spurs. See you guys hopefully in the next week or so, all right?